Good evening and welcome to a very special installment of the MBtv Debates Cunha Foundation series. Today we have a distinguished panel of speakers. We'll be talking about economic recovery from the lens of Macau-based international chambers of commerce, building on the momentum post-pandemic recovery and beyond, as Macau embraces a sound post-pandemic recovery. Economic modernization and diversification surely take center stage, along with regional integration and other opportunities and challenges. With us, we have, as I was saying, a distinguished panel of representatives from Macau-based international chambers of commerce. They'll share their views on what's the way forward and how they've been observing and faring during this post-pandemic period. We are now basically 6 months into the reopening since the end of pandemic restrictions, and what we have already witnessed, what we can see already is, let's look at the figures. Let's say, for instance, when we look at the gross gaming revenue, the city's core industry, in June, we had GGR reaching about 2/3 of pre-pandemic December 2019. The same goes for the May 2023 visitation tally. When we look at the forecast for economic growth, just earlier this week, we had a study by the University of Macau predicting a 47% year-on-year growth for the local economy. Of course, we have to consider that this is set to take place following a 26.8% plunge in 2022 and the challenges brought by the pandemic and the related restrictions. Well, without further ado, let me introduce our panel of speakers. We are honored for having the presence here as guest speakers of Charles Choy. He's the chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in Macau. Billy Chan, chairman of the Australian Chamber of Commerce in Macau. On my left, Keith Buckley, chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in Macau. On my right, Rutger Verschuren, chairman of the France-Macau Chamber of Commerce. Joining us from Portugal, we have Pedro Cunha, president of the Macau European Chamber of Commerce. And following alphabetical order by the English name of the Chambers of Commerce, last not least, Álvares, president of the Macau Delegation of the Portugal-China Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much. Let me start by telling you that this is truly meaningful and special. I said this is since the very beginning of our session. This is a very special installment of this series of debates that Macau Business has been holding in partnership with Cunha Foundation since 2020. That's been 3 years. We have been able to put forth and nurture the conversation about social and economic development of our city, always with a forward-looking perspective and view. And I have to tell you that Macau Business and Cunha Foundation, we were talking about this idea of bringing together chambers of commerce for an inter-chambers talk. Of course, we also have representatives here of other chambers of commerce who will also be sharing with us their views and take on the current situation. And I would like to welcome you all those of you who are joining us here at Cunha Foundation, and of course, those who are following us on Facebook Live and later on MBtv. Well, let me ask Carlos Álvares. I would ask you to start by sharing with us your views and the first 2 cents as the Portugal-China Chamber of Commerce and Industry is actually the oldest of these chambers of commerce. It was first established in 1978 in Portugal and then in 1993 in Macau with the Macau Delegation. Carlos, Thank you very much. Tell us about how the chamber has been faring and how has been the chamber's operation and views since the end of the pandemic restrictions, now that we are already basically 6 months into this new era or this new stage where the pandemic haze is behind us and we have a new situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, José. Thank you, Fundação Rui Cunha. It's a pleasure to be here with this so famous panelists, my colleagues from the other chambers, and also with Rui. Rui, give us the idea of remembering how we worked with the COVID. So that's how I start. So it was not easy. We lived almost 3 years with virtual meetings, and that's why we did it. That's how we did it. So it was impossible to do it in a different way. So we had to adapt, and that's what we had to do. So virtual meetings, virtual sessions, and trying to not stop things. But of course, it was not so easy as what now it's happening again. Fortunately, things changed, and the chamber is already doing what it's supposed to do. So opening doors, linking people, linking companies, linking dots. Recently, what we did, and that was very, very good for us, I think, and also for Macau. So we helped the local authorities on the building of the trip of the chief executive to Portugal. So we linked the authorities to companies in Portugal. Maybe companies that maybe can come to Macau and Hengqin to do their investments. Let's see what's happening in the near future, but that's it. So back in business, we are doing everything that we are supposed to do, and we are very happy that we could help recently authorities to try to do business, try to link companies between Portugal in this case, but the idea is the Portuguese-speaking countries and Macau.
Thank you, Carlos. Rui, the Macau European Chamber of Commerce during the pandemic, like all of these chambers that did not stop, kept on moving, kept on organizing events. Tell us a bit about that and also about the activities over the past few months.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, please.
Good. Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Well, it's a pleasure to be here talking to with such a distinguished panel of guests. The MECC continued to have quite a few activities because we are a chamber of chambers, which means we do basically what our member chambers ask us to do. Our events are a bit different from the other chambers, mostly behind the scenes, some meetings, and those could go on during the pandemic.
Thank you, Rui. Rutger, FMCC.
More recently,
please go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. More recently,
there is some delay.
No worries. More recently, you were saying that.
More recently, we've been able to pick up again those more visible activities. We had some trips to Hengqin starting in November. We had contacts with the Hengqin government, the Hengqin Executive Committee. We also started again having contacts with government officials from China. We had visits from officials from the Chongqing government. Chongqing government, and also from Qingdao government. So we've been picking up where we left off before the pandemic.
Thank you, Rui. Carlos mentioned Hengqin, Rui mentioned Hengqin, and Rutger. Hengqin is also part of your recent activity, right?
Yes,
I think all of us, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Right?
We have actually we had our first trip after the borders opened was straight into Hengqin with our members, and it was a very nice trip to cross the border. We felt like going on a field trip. It was a field trip, of course, but it was a strange feeling to cross the border for our members. And also to see that Hengqin actually has developed a lot, and there's a lot more to come, as we all know. But the last 3 years for us, just to roll back a little bit further, it was really tough. The first few months in the COVID, we didn't know how to get our activities going, and everyone, like everyone else, we also had our Zoom meetings and so forth. And quickly that became the new normal. But any moment there was a gap that we could have an event in person, of course we did that. And I must thank our members to be loyal. We did lose some members simply because they left the country, but also we gained members. In fact, we have more members today than we had before COVID. So that's kind of amazing. And I think everyone put in a lot of hard work, being a self-funded chamber. Financially is also a bit of a worry. How does it go? How long does this going to take? And we had to postpone one gala dinner, for example, for this reason. But after that, we had a lot of support, and we came out stronger than before. We have been very agile. We have a lot of new activities. I think when there is a crisis, the mind starts to get faster and smarter and start to think what we can do to reinvent ourselves. So we have actually come out with a lot of new things. We have new 3 subcommittees, from the culinary arts to GBA tourism and leisure, as well as technology innovation. Those 3 subcommittees are very active. All of them had the activities already. We also started the FMCC Young Business Club for members and new members below 35-year-old. Then we also start our charity gala dinner will be very soon in September this year. So Paris Extravaganza. Sorry, it makes me advertising here. If I may. 15th of September. Pencil in your calendar. The fact that we are a member of the CCI France International with 33,000 members worldwide is the largest industry chamber network in France. Over 93 countries. That has been very powerful and supportive as well to us. So overall, I think we come out quite stronger than before.
Sure, thank you. The gala dinner, we also had, in the case of the Macao European Chamber of Commerce as well. And the Bridgeham Ball, which is also a highlight of the year. Keith, can you please tell us a bit about this, how Bridgeham weathered this storm, and also your renewed impetus, I would say, after the pandemic?
Okay, thank you, Jose, and thanks everybody for joining us. Yes, the pandemic had its problems, but actually, in reflection, we weathered it quite well. We had lots of events. We did lose one. We should have had 3 balls in those 3 years. We lost 1. But otherwise, life went on quite normally. We had a lot of events. The members didn't really like Zoom meetings, so we didn't do any Zooms. It was all face-to-face meetings. And what we lacked was speakers from Hong Kong, because they couldn't travel. And we also lacked trade missions from a business point of view, because we in the past have had trade missions that start in Hong Kong and then come into Macau or even go to Shenzhen, and so that all stopped, and we're just waiting for some renewed activity this year. We also, like Rutger was saying, we lost members, and especially if I think of the sectors, construction sector had a lot of British people, aviation, helicopters. So those the sectors that suffered and weren't replaced, of course, and still not replaced. So, but on top of that, we did get increased membership, and again, our membership is higher now than it's been. It's higher because of individual memberships, and I think you could talk about the good and the bad of COVID. One of the good things was that people couldn't travel, they couldn't go out, so they wanted something to do. So join a chamber. That's one thing. And the other good thing is because they couldn't travel, they attended the events. And already this year, like this month, July, it's turning out to be quite difficult to drum up the numbers compared to before because there's a lot of people away, and the same will continue in August. And so I guess that's one of the changes. So I think, those were the highlights of the highlights and the lowlights of the COVID period. I myself didn't travel for 3 years, but we weren't really locked down. That was the good thing. We weren't in the China mode where we were locked in the house. So life went on, but you missed the travel. So this year, since the COVID lifted, restrictions lifted, things are improving. We're getting back on track. We also have had 2 trips to Hengqin in the last couple of months, and we will have some more planned after September, after the summer holidays. And it is obviously an area of interest. And hopefully we will get some more trade missions coming in from via Hong Kong into Macau. And I think what we have to do is we must not think Macau now. We have to think Macau and Hengqin. So a trade mission to Macau should actually include Hengqin and, if possible, the GBA. So things are picking up, not looking bad, and looking good for the future.
Thank you. Billy, yes. I would be right if I would say that you are surely on the same page, right, with regards to Auscham, which also has kept on holding a number of events. On of course, once a year, the annual Australia Day BBQ and also Power Hour. And tell us about this view also looking ahead with regards to trade missions, Hengqin, Greater Bay Area.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Inviting me as a new chair of Auscham.
Chair, yes, exactly, newly elected chair.
My directors also supporting me tonight, and everybody here, and also the famous chap over in Portugal looking at us. So,
Yes.
It's been a wonderful 3 years, but I understand the degree of restriction of traveling the last 3 years was horrendous. But I echo to what Mr. Buckley talking about. We have a captive audience here. So the last 3 years, all our events were pretty much well attended. Yes, we have lost a lot of Australian families from the gaming industry, so they have to go back home or went off to Singapore and other places. But our numbers of membership actually has just gone up just a little bit. We've got almost 140 individuals, and we haven't lost any corporate or SME members. That's a good thing. Ever since the restrictions over, our Consul General Elizabeth Ward and her husband, the immediate past ambassador to Delhi, also Consul Patrick came over right away to meet with our Australian public, and that was a good time during the Australia Day. We deliberately sort of shifted to February instead of 26th of January, celebrating that. So, and subsequently, all the consul officer the trade officer actually can come to Macau to attend meetings and stuff. Just a month ago, we met Oliver Clark, and also a week ago we met Consul Aaron and Ken. So they've been very forcefully contacting the chamber and see how they can make Macau the Macau Australian public not feeling too abandoned during the last 3 years, because absolutely nobody can go over to Hong Kong, and they can't come over to fix the passport issue. But luckily, because of the advancement of the IT, we can do all the passport online, and they can send it over by DHL. So things are moving very good. Just of late, I have invited the Deputy Consul General. She's also the Senior Trade Commissioner, Shannon Powell, to come over this month, just to give a bit of plug, like yes. What Rutger just did. We're going to have a power lunch on the 26th this month, and we'll be talking about GBA development. So we couldn't do this before, but also we have two very remarkable speakers as well. They're very switched on with what's happening in GBA. One of them actually is the first batch of the Hong Kong GBA lawyer. He's the vice chair of the ACHK. And also the Royal Commonwealth Society, the vice chair is also coming. Both of them, incidentally, they were formerly Melbourne-based. So we've got some brilliant Aussies coming over to speak about GBA. Look at the figures, what the Trade Commission gave us, pretty staggering. 5.8% increase the last 5 months, 2.18 trillion just in the Guangdong GBA area. On track to what they predicted and all that. So even last year, such a lousy year, China enjoyed 22 trillions of economic output. 1/3 of those are actually for export, and a third went to United States. Yeah. I'm sure Charles agree with me. We spoke to Charles Freeman from your chamber in Washington. They were saying, yes, if you want us to leave China, okay, but we are not going back to the United States. And 2,000 of your members actually remain in southern China and reinvest. So if business is not good, why would they reinvest?
So it's interesting. Thank you, Willie, that notwithstanding all the rather gloomy headlines that we've been having over the past couple of years, Charles, business keeps on thriving, right? In terms of, if you look at the figures, if you look at not only in terms of trade, but also investment, it's pretty strong, right? Can you please tell us about that, and also of the people-to-people resumption post-pandemic? Thank you.
Okay, I'm Charles Choy. I've been serving AmCham in the past decade for 2 terms, and I took over at the beginning of this year again. And AmCham has not been stopping what we've been doing. And in the past 3 years, we have been focusing very heavily on serving our citizens and members in terms of working very closely with, as opposed to what a lot of people think, that we've been working very closely with the Consulate General in Hong Kong in serving them. And against all odds, in a very difficult time, we hosted 2 Macau days in the past 3 years to serve our citizens here who needs help most. And newborn baby, death, of course, and we have people who would like to exit or leaving the region, and so on. And also we have a person serving his jail term in Macau. So it's not been easy. And on the other hand, we also maintain and doing a lot of Zoom meetings during the COVID time with AmCham Hong Kong, of course, and also our members, and along with the council, with the Consul General at the time, Hanscom Smith, on most of the concerns that a lot of our businesses here have, including our 3 companies here, the 3 U.S.-based company here in Macau. And so we think that we have been doing quite well on that, I think. And then and as we go to AmCham, as we all know, we have a bit more challenges than other chambers usually. So we're trying to maintain that pace, and that's one. Another one is we also have just received our Consul General in Macau last Wednesday and Thursday, and the first in 3 years the national celebration was being held at the MGM Macau last week. And some good news, back to the question on trade or even the presence of American businesses in Macau and in Hong Kong. Words from Consul General Gregory May was that unlike a lot of rumors that we've been hearing, according to the consulate's number, not so many company has actually left Hong Kong or Macau. And the number's been basically very steady. And but some citizens did leave the places, not because of the new environment or politics, but mostly on COVID. And now COVID is gone. He actually expects that many of the expats will be coming back to Hong Kong and Macau. And also, Hengqin is popular, so we'll talk about Hengqin also. So MCham would be assisting the Commerce Department in Hong Kong to organize a delegation with different industries. We're preparing the categories of industries now. We hope that it's going to be a large delegation to Hengqin and also to the GBA. And we have also shared this information with the Macau SAR government and also with the MFA and the liaison office. It's a big welcome. And so, and that would be our trade part. And also to have networking with members, we have a plan to resume our ball, the annual ball, the MCham ball, December 13th this year at the Wind Palace. So we are planning on that. We have a theme, but I'll keep it a little so before the real announcement later. So that's what we've been doing.
So we'll be keeping our eyes on the ball, or on the balls, I would
Definitely,
say.
yeah,
Right?
Well, that's the number one thing that
Yes.
we could actually network on
Yes.
members.
Thank you, Charles. So from this first round, we can see a couple of key words. We will be talking about Hengqin a bit later on, but people, talent, human resources, having more professionals coming to Macau from outside of Macau, be it overseas or Hong Kong or mainland China. Carlos, you have been focusing on this, and I guess this is a shared meta for all chambers, which is in a highly competitive environment that we are already in, how can we allure these highly skilled professionals that the city needs to fulfill its mission? And when I say, and I mentioned highly competitive environment, I happen to have just returned from the Greater Bay Area. I joined a tour alongside colleagues from Portuguese and English media outlets, organized by the Office of the Commissioner of Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Guangzhou, Shaoguan, Dongguan, and Shenzhen. And every single one of these cities is rolling out or has already rolled out talent attraction schemes and mechanisms. So there's a competition for talent. Carlos, your first 2 cents on this. Thank you.
Correct, Jose. There's a strong competition for talent in the Great Bay Area, Hong Kong, the 9 cities, and of course, Macau cannot be aside of that. And I think government is looking to it very seriously. Today I read in the newspaper that the government wants to take at least 1,000 talented people to Macau. They put in place a new regulation, and I suppose that it's going to have some effects for sure. I know some people that are on the commissions of the talented. I believe that they are going to do a good job. I wonder if we could, because for now I think this is going to be mainly for the 1+4 strategy.
Yeah.
So mainly for finance, pharmaceutical, MICE, and give me a help. One more. Technology,
exactly.
of course. I always forget technology, but I can't. So I think that maybe there could be a different door for a special kind of people that could come to Macau and could give a strong value added for the economy. I was thinking about the CEOs or CFOs of holding of multinational companies. And it's something that later I will develop a little bit more, because I think it could be very interesting for Macau regarding the diversification of tax collection, diversification of the GDP. So what the government is doing is already very strong, I think, but we are competing with a lot of cities in the region, and maybe there's room for doing a little bit more regarding CEOs and CFOs of companies that can give a lot of jobs in Macau to youngers that are finishing their degrees, and that can also help for the diversification of the economy. But that's something that I would address a little bit later.
No, thank you, Carlos. Rui, you have, with Pedro Cunha, you have mentioned in the latest gala dinner by the Macau European Chamber of Commerce that you were placing expectations, or high expectations, I would say, or at least good expectations on the outcome of the talent attraction mechanism that has come into effect just a few days ago on the 1st of July. Also, you may want to hook it up to what Carlos and Álvares were saying with regards to how to get it right.
Yes, Carlos, I agree 100% with what Carlos Álvares just said. I think we need to diversify the economy, and to do that, we need people with skills, and those skills simply do not exist in Macau, because if they did, the economy would already be diversified. The new measures just went into force 5 days ago. It's way too soon to make any comments. I think we'll have to wait about 2 or 3 months until we see some results. But I also agree with Carlos that even though this is a very good first step, we need a wider scope, not only focused on the 1+4, but also on the rest of the economy, because most of the businesses are already feeling the pressure of the businesses that are recovering, are starting to vacuum the human resources of other businesses that are not 1+4, but are also needed for Macau's economy to function. So I think we really need a new approach, a complementary approach to what has already been done. So again, I believe what has been done is a good first step, but now we need measures that also take into account the other sectors of the economy that might not be recovering so fast and are feeling the pressure of those sectors that are.
Thank you, Rui. Rutger, this is also an issue that you've been addressing a number of times, raising awareness on the importance, say for instance, when it comes first and foremost the tourism and hospitality industry, but of course the 1+4 industries and beyond that. What's your take on this?
Well, it's a great thing,
Yeah.
1+4, because yesterday or today we still won. One is, I assume, it's tourism, the hospitality, the entertainment, that's all one. And if you have a certain business and you want to grow it by just doing things better, yes, you can grow, but it's a small growth. And it is a monotone growth. We do the same thing, but we do it a little bit better. So that is one way we are working. So that's the tourism plus, I think.
Yes.
So you have tourism, and that's okay. Let's add on educational tours. Let's add on sports. Let's add on maritime activities. Let's add on some other sort of tourism, culture, creativity, gastronomy. That's all very nice, and that works well. Mm-hmm. But I think the 1+4 is the big changer. So that means that we're going to see new industries in Macau. And if you start something new, you cannot start it with mediocre management, frankly speaking. You need talents, true talents. So when I read, they're looking for Nobel Prize winners or CEOs of major companies, I said, wow, that is something. And I think we should not think about Macau. It's linked with Hengqin, as we said earlier. Mm-hmm. There's not like there's Macau and there's Hengqin. I think the master plan is to bring all this in one. Mm-hmm. So whoever becomes a talent imported by Macau will be able to work in Hengqin as well. And Hengqin has a lot more space to build all those industries. You talk about, there's a hospital in Hengqin, but also, of course, the islands medical center in Cotai, opening up soon. Then the high technology, that's something quite new. The AI is coming at us, you cannot believe it. 6 months ago, I think we didn't even know where it stood for. All we knew what it stood for movies. But now it is a real thing. I mean, people are using ChatGPT to make essays and to use it for work. So we are going really fast. And we cannot just slowly find our talents. So besides, the government has set up a certain number of rules for this high achievers. To make it easier, it becomes a very transparent process. Unlike before, there's a bit sort of mystery, frankly speaking. But now it is transparent, it is online, and only in the last phase people have to come actually to Macau to do the interviews. And that will be very attractive, I think, for this reason. So yeah, I think we are on the right track with this. There are two layers of talents, I would say. One is the existing industries, which is mostly tourism. And it took almost 6 months before we saw a big improvement, that we could finally get the quotas back, we could get the import labor back in the place, because a lot of people left. And as we all know, we talk about hospitality, we had the rooms, but we did not have the people to clean the rooms. And now, I think by this summer, where we are running full occupancy, Macau is going to be chock-a-block full. You will see that in August. So, but I think we will have the right people, enough people to clean the rooms and serve the guests in the restaurants. So that's a good thing. So that's the one layer. The other layer is the new industries, the 1+4, those 4.
Which we'll be further elaborating on. Thank you, Rutger. Keith, you need, of course, people, you need land, capital. We have capital, right? Land, we have the new land reclamations, the idle land plots, but also Hengqin, and people, meaning skilled, differently skilled professionals. What's your first approach to this conversation?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. Personally, there's a lot of words, talent attraction,
yes.
Committee, but I've not met anybody who said, I need this. I haven't met anybody that I know that says I need this. Now, okay, I'm in the lowest of the low, the construction sector. I'm not in finance. I'm not in these other sectors. But I would like to see more clarity on. I've seen what these various grades of talent are, and they're described, but how they relate to the actual businesses, I'm still to see that, and we'll see how it develops. And I think the other thing I feel, there are so many cliches being talked about. It doesn't matter about 1+4 or these things. It's nothing's going to happen overnight, but there's a lot of expectation. But for me, things will gradually develop. I mean, for instance, I live in Ocean Gardens. I look across at Hengqin, and 5 years in 2016, I took a photograph showing one tower, which is the IFC, coming out of the ground. 2017 were 3 towers. Now, if I look, it goes from the whole area in front of me, and they're all empty. All down to the Hengqin border gate, they're empty. They're not totally empty, but I bet if I said 95% empty, I wouldn't be far out. So there's a lot there's a lot of talk, but if we're realistic about it, it's going to take some time. This is not going to happen overnight. And it's like the statistics that you were quoting. The statistics are always, year on year, but they don't relate back to 2019. And so there's still a long way to go. Okay, it's moving the right direction, but for me, it's not going to happen as quickly as perhaps is being put out, and it'll take time. And that's the same with the labour. I was reading about the imported workforce now has still not reached pre-pandemic levels. That's apart from the talent, because the workforce at that level is not the talent. It's these higher levels is the thing that has got to grow. So I'll be interested to see what Carlos has got to say, how he's going to solve the problem. But those are my views at the moment, and I guess I'm a bit sort of realistic, practical about it. I'm waiting for things to change, and I would like to see some, I'd like to meet people who say, oh, I need to do this, and I need people. So let's see.
Let's see how we're going to walk the talk. And Billy, would that be an issue here, potentially the risk of a sort of capabilities expectation gap? Because we have, of course, all these blueprints, right? Which surely look pretty good on paper, but then you have the implementation. What's your comment on this debate?
Yeah, all valid comments. I mean, chaps, is fantastic. We talk about this fairly important issue. My question always is, all right, we attract good people to come over to Macau to work and to work on things and projects and good ideas. But how are we going to retain what we have today? I still got professors in my university. I've got actually two formerly based, one in Sydney, one in Wollongong. They're working with me in the faculty. But they're still on a 2-year blue card. Some of them are on a 1-year blue card. And they're highly qualified people. But the government is actually not being generous to these amazing talents. It's very hard to get them. I mean, the blue card system. I mean, the moment you try to employ them, it takes a good 6 months or maybe more to get them over here. And they can't even bring their families over and family members over. So this is quite frustrating. I mean, I really totally agree with what Keith just mentioned. My idea was, okay, you have Hangqing, we have a sort of a gray area. I don't know how they're going to window dress it.
A greater Bay Area.
Yeah, well, GBA but Hangqing in itself.
Gray, yes.
It's a gray area, and it's still very gray area. I mean, but just a couple of weeks ago, a chap came over and talked about gene therapy together with TCM. A week ago, we had our power hour. We had a fantastic Australian doctors, Dr. Gabriel Lee came and talked about TCM shouldn't be just an alternative way of healthcare. It should be $1 million investment in TCM if we make something else. But we need people to come here to work. And these scientists won't come here if you give a 1-year blue card. So that's a frustration I see as a chamber chair. And we'd love to have these amazing people over. I'm just, in June, I think Australian Trade Commission led this biggest biotech team from Australia, 20 companies, to southern China. I mean, I got the names here, but if I may read them out or something, but if I have time. But I'm saying the biggest Australian team came over. We're talking about DIA, the Document Information Exhibition in southern China, or in contract research, manufacturing, analysis, toxicology lab, review services, business consultation. And these companies are some of the biggest ones we have from Australia. 360 Biolab, George Clinical, and Bellberry, so on and so forth. Our strength and services in drug development and technology, innovation and clinical trials and all that stuff. We can bring these people here, but how are we going to keep them here? They always ask good questions, like how are we going to work in GBA, how are we going to work in Hangqing or Macau? I cannot give them a very good answer. I cannot give them a positive answer. So that's my two bob worth. Yeah.
So yes, thank you, Billy. This also boils down also to the issue of mobility, right? Between Macau and Hangqing and the rest of the Greater Bay Area. Charles, keeping the highly skilled professionals that we already have here, many of them for a number of years, that highly cherish being here and like to continue to contribute, and also the issue of attracting the people we need, the talents we need. What's your take on this?
I seriously don't have a solution for that. Yes. I mean, to be honest, I mean, like other gentlemen. I'll start with one example for an HR incident that I currently came along. There's a guy who graduated from my school, the University of Chicago, very good guy, and then went to Harvard, and then was working in finance in the States for 1 or 2 years, I think. A young kid, and then he sent me a message over the new year, January 1. He said, "Hey, I'll be coming to Hong Kong." I said, "Wow, great." you see, I got the approval within 3 days. So I'm not promoting any crazy thing or any like reckless attractions to talents, but I think the aggressiveness of Hong Kong or the other regions that are close to us in the GBAs, I think it's the gestures that we have to give to these talents. I believe this is a talent. It's top 100 school definitely in the world. It's low risk to attract them and to be responsible for the Macau society. So this is one. So I'm no expert on HR. So this is what I'm just going to share. It's for me it's rather dramatic. And then on the Tourism Plus, you know, I'm in manufacturing. Actually, I own a joint venture company with Kirin Brewery. It's an internationally known company. It's also a global 500 company, Macao Beer. And then we were asked a few years ago to participate in the Tourism Plus with the Macau government. And we've been doing quite well, actually. So if you ask me, for me, 1 + 4, and Galosh, you're not alone. I always forget that high-tech thing also. So I think there's still a lot that we can do on the one. And going to Billy, I mean, there are a lot of things that we have already. And I believe personally that we have not fully explored what's in it and the values that we have. And I think back to a statement that is currently made by the vice chairman of CPPCC, Edmund Ho. He said that I think safeguard what we have now and do think creatively for what we can bring from that. I think for Macao Beer as one example, I still think that we have been doing for a few years, we have been doing successfully, but still there are lots of things that we can do. So I would suggest as a businessman that while we are working very diligently on the other four, but the one is very important, and it's still not the end of it. There's still a lot we can do, and just one short example. I think brands, this is our area. I'm serving at the Macau Quality Certification Committee, which is an M mark you might have heard of. Yes. And the government and ourselves, we're trying to nurture few brands, not very aggressively, few, as many as we can, to bring them to the GBA. And fortunately, our brands are already in the GBA in China and also in some countries in the world, so we could contribute. So I do think that there are a lot of things that we, as a beer, we could do, and I believe other products also, we can find angles that can be a synergy with Macau's development. Yeah, that's what I'm going to share.
Thank you, Charles. Please feel free to jump in at any time. I guess, I believe, Keith, you'd like to add something.
I was remembering something I meant to give as an example with this talent is, you know, for instance, we've got a new hospital, the Island Hospital at the end of the Cotai Strip. So then if we go into 1 + 4, you go into medical tourism, for instance. So yes, you could attract the talent to be involved in this, but you know, just to say, oh yes, medical tourism. You know, we had a Marlow clinic some years ago that never made it, and the challenges are massive. You can get all the talent in, but there's other hurdles. You've got to stop people going to Bangkok to do their medical tourism. You've got to persuade them to stay in Macau, or you've got to entice them away from Singapore, from Hong Kong, and you know, I was looking. There was this the law that started on the 1st of July for attracting the foreign talent, and I see 3 committees: Evaluation Committee for Attracting Qualified Talent, Talent Development Committee, and the 3rd committee is the Public Security Police Force. So what are you going to do if you're coming in from overseas? Why have I got to see these people, you know? So, you know, there are many hurdles along the way to entice people to come here.
Thank you. Would you like to add something before we have a first round? Please, Rutger,
Maybe,
please
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, because the 1+4,
Yes.
number 4 is MICE, right? Conventions and events. But actually, that is not. You could argue this is not really a 4. That's already in 1. That's already in the tourism.
In the plus, in the tourism
In
plus.
the plus, yeah. And we keep talking MICE, and the large integrated resorts, they have enormous MICE facilities. It has to do with the square meters, gaming, non-gaming. But the facilities are there, and they're really magnificent. But to fill those rooms, this afternoon we had a look at the inventory of Macau, as there was a new hotel announced to be opened in August. 48,000 rooms in Macau, including the guest houses. So total 48,000. I think a few years ago it was something like 38,000. So 10,000 more. And we should not deny that the gaming takes up a lot of those rooms. If there would be no gaming, how many tourists would we get? And this is something we need to look at for 10 years from today. What's the direction beyond the 10 years? I'm not speculating anything, but just we need to be alert. So maybe that's the reason that the +4 comes in. But anyway, the tourism is there, but then how to fill up those rooms and how to fill up the MICE facilities is going to be a real challenge. Look at the access. We talk about the blue cards and all that, which is already a drama. But the other situation is how to get here. If you come from Hong Kong, how to come to Macau. With the MICE, as you have MICE organizers, you have people coming in from all over the world. How they would find a way here? It's really not easy. If you have been a few times from Hong Kong to Macau, you take the bus. You have to find where is that bus in the Hong Kong airport terminal. Where's the taxi? You have to cross the road with your luggage. So it's all very cumbersome. The ferry, I'm sure they would like to have more ferries going, but at the moment there's only one ferry a day or so. And so that is not. From Zhuhai, coming in from Zhuhai, it's still 1 hour to come here. And luckily there will be a bridge, and that will, or tunnel, that will be through Hengqin. So in 25 minutes from Zhuhai Airport, you are in Macau. That's good. But then our own airport is too small to get long-haul flights in there at the moment. And if you look at today, it's still just a few flights from other countries other than the Chinese-speaking countries. So I think there's a lot of improvement to make Macau a true MICE and event center. It is really a stretch. But moving forward, the intention is there to make things better, but it just takes a bit of time.
Thank you, Carlos. Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Jay. So we all love Macau. So we are here to give some suggestions to make Macau even better. So looking to the 1+4 strategy, I wonder if, and I'm looking to Niall, so I wonder if Macau could be a kind of Ireland of Asia. Just to let you know, so Ireland and Portugal 25 years ago had the same GDP per capita. And now Ireland is on the top 3 of GDP in the world because they had a very low tax corporate rate, mostly because of that. Of course, they have other features, but other qualities. But I think Macau has almost everything. We have a very low tax corporate rate. It's friendly environment. It's completely safe. There's really a good life here in Macau. It's in the center of Asia to travel. The only thing that we need is this scheme to be a change so that we can attract talent. I was wondering if we could attract more holdings of multinational companies, because we have already some here. They pay taxes. They don't compete with the other companies in Macau. They give a lot of jobs, but they only need a system that can give certainty for people to come and work. And I'm talking normally about a CEO and a CFO, and normally they give 10 jobs each of this company. I think it's a suggestion. So 1+4 is the way, but maybe on parallel, we could go also for the services area. diversifying the economy, diversifying the tax collection, and give a more resilient base for the Macau economy if we have problems in the future again. So that's it.
Thank you, Carlos. Rui, 1 plus 4, 1 times 4, but that doesn't add, right? How about 1 plus 4 times 10? Could you enlighten us in terms of the maths here of diversification?
I don't know how to answer that.
Yes.
But our diversification needs people, and I think one takeaway from this debate is that we are all working towards the same goal, which is to help develop the Macau economy, and to do that we need talent. If we look back, I think it was September last year, there was a Macau business debate right there at the Cunha Foundation.
That is nice.
And one of the takeaways was that we need to attract people, but first of all, we need to allow them to come in, which is something that at that time we were not allowing. Now people can actually come in. We need the further steps to actually attract people and make it easier, because like Charles was saying, it's a very tough competition, and we didn't even start testing the waters yet. I think when the government finally notices that this is something really important, it's going to be maybe a bit too late. Because if we compare what's going on in the Guangdong province, which has specific, clear, transparent policies to attract talent in many different industries, not only the 4. If you compare to Hong Kong, if you compare to Shenzhen, they're all quite advanced and actively allowing talent to come in. We are still in the taking out one by one the bricks of the wall that we had. So I think we really need to speed this up, and not only on a residence point of view, but probably also from a blue card point of view. I think it was Rutger that was saying that, or Billy maybe, that people can come in as blue cards, but they cannot bring their family. This is unthinkable. If we want people to come and work in Macau and contribute to the economy, we need them to be able to bring their family, to have their kids studying there, etc. So I think there's really a long way to go. And even though I agree that the 1+4 strategy that has been put forward is going to be the way forward, we need not forget all the other sectors that are essential for the working of Macau. And if we focus only on the 4, we're going to have problems on everything else. I'm not sure I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you have. It's a kind of maths that, or something that is more qualitative, that helps us get the final answer and the equation, which is something that we are looking for. Thank you, Rui. And now I would like to bring into the conversation, in addition to the leaders of the 6 chambers of commerce, we are also joined by leaders and representatives of another 2 chambers of commerce. Niall Murray is the head of the Irish Chamber of Commerce. Just a couple of minutes ago, Carlos Álvares was kind of bringing you and Ireland into the conversation. Anything that you'd like to share, please go ahead, about the chamber and about this whole conversation, please.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and to hopefully participate a little way. I think it's been wonderful, all the suggestions that have come up, and as everyone said, we love Macau, that's why we're here. And we're all supportive as chambers to bring more business. I think it's interesting that there are a number of areas that the government's working on. I question the timing of some of the initiatives and the pace. So it's very interesting to bring in individuals and give them permission to come in as highly successful individuals. But you need to attract the industry first, as Carlos had mentioned earlier. Ireland is one of the smallest countries in Europe and at a great disadvantage because it's an island. It's not even connected to the continent of Europe. It had no natural resources, no no minerals to exploit. So we had to go directly to services. So we worked on having incentives to attract certain industries to Ireland to help us to survive and to strive. And I believe that, as you had mentioned, Carlos, that's the exact thing that Hengqin can offer, possibly, and the Greater Bay Area Development can offer, if together we can bring in enough incentives to say, finance industry, we're more attractive than Hong Kong, because that's what you're up against.
Yeah.
IT industry, we're more attractive than Shenzhen. That's what you're up against. So over this 1+4 development, these 4 industries have to be on the competitive index the highest they can be in the international rankings. And in addition to that, ease of doing business with. There are certain parameters there and best practices that can be followed by different companies. I think they need to be thrown into the big picture of how we develop moving forward in making the +4 work. But at the same time, the dependence on one has to be given the leeway it needs with, given the blue cards and everything that's needed to just run the day-to-day, everyday businesses of the one industry right now, which is being asked to tilt from gaming to non-gaming, which is a big ask because our customers currently want gaming first and non-gaming second. So it's going to take time to move towards a model that was in Vegas, for example, where you got 70% non-gaming, 30% gaming. It's a wish, it's an aspiration, but it's going to take a long time to accomplish. It's one that the concessions are fully behind. But I believe to make the other 4 move, we've got to do something as radical as had happened with the gaming industry, which was open it up to world players to bring them in and compete to want to be here. That's going to have to happen, I think, in the other 4, and I think it's possible. We were shut down, the Irish Chamber, more or less, during the COVID, but I had the good fortune of being there for a year and built up relationships with those industries. There, a lot of them are part of the +4. There's huge excitement for them to want to come here, but quite frankly, they said to me, until those Macau is as competitive as Singapore, Hong Kong, and what's being offered in other jurisdictions, there is no attraction for them to come here yet. But I think Macau will be able to accomplish that if they really look at the key benchmarks to make them the drawing point for this part of the world.
Thank you for your input, Niall. We are also joined by Joyce Francis from Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Macau. Joyce, your comments, you're sharing something about either CanCham or the topics here, please go ahead. Thank you.
As a new and newly introduced Macau citizen joining this year, I actually am one of those that went through all the difficulties of getting the blue card and getting the family here. Yes, I've learned so much from all your insights. Definitely in terms of part of the big Canadian cohort is actually with the international school here. And I think it will apply to every single commercial association here that families are important. And when you're talking about attracting talents, the core of it for stability is to bring families in. And so having the right education, having the access, and having them able to stay and bring their family, I think that was a very crucial element. And I think this is something that I think something like the Canadian Chamber and the international schools help with, and giving them a strong education that way. I guess with international education, we have actually really, we have a lot of universities access that are coming, and they're very attracted to recruiting all of the Macau education, like graduates. Actually, TIS actually has in the university fair coming up in September, where we have usually in history, over 100+ universities that will come and so it does give access to the international education as well. I think that's a point where, the stability, the strong family and access, that will probably be something attractive and hopefully growing. We are seeing more families coming back as well, so the membership comes through that too, so that's really good. Thank you for the opportunity to come.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you very much. The floor is open to the audience also to jump in with some remarks and questions. Please, Jill, please go ahead.
Thank you. Carlos, I talked to you as a recruiter of 30 years in Hong Kong. Recruiting for major banks, I never had to sell Hong Kong to have any talent come there. That's my first statement. Everybody wanted to come to Hong Kong. Number one, they knew they were going to certainly be accepted. No problem at all with getting things like blue cards or white cards or whatever they were. But they realized that if they went there, they were going to earn good money. Now, the point I'm leading here too is Macau, the government has got to do an international branding of GBA, Hangqing, Macau, Hong Kong, and we've got to get out there and tell the world that this is what we need. My question is, and I don't know whether anybody here on the panel can answer this, but how is this government going to do it? Because if you want talent, and I was in search and recruitment, every day of my life, we branded Hong Kong. We were out there on the phone talking to, banks all over the world, right? So, and this last week, I called 6 people in London. Never heard of Hangqing. What is Hangqing? What is GBA? So I think, yes, we have a huge job, okay? That's my first whole series of questions or statements or whatever. The second is, please, for your bank, actually in Hangqing, can you see FDI going in there now? Can you see corporates actually setting up, and are people, individual people, opening bank accounts? And is that happening more?
Thank you, Jill. Perhaps, Carlos, you may answer, or someone else would like to join and address the issue.
So, Jill, regarding the first statement, completely agree. So, not many people knowing what's Hangqing, but I think the government is trying to do it. They invited recently for a big meeting all the consulates from Hong Kong, Macau, to go to Hangqing to show what's going on. So I think they are doing a lot of things to promote the Great Bay Area, the Hangqing, Macau. So they are doing it. They did it recently in Portugal, I think in Brussels and in Luxembourg. And I'm not talking, I'm not a governmental official, but that's what I read from the newspaper. So I think you are right. They are doing what they can, and I think they can do more than that. Regarding Hangqing, so the banking services, what's happening is that the rules are from mainland. So it's a little bit difficult for those companies that are already in Macau, that have their businesses here, that have their customers here, to reinvest in a second back office, a second IT, to do business there where there are not many customers. So for a company that comes from abroad, it's okay. They don't know the environment in Macau, they don't know the environment in mainland or in Hangqing. So when they come, they can go directly to Hangqing, and they are going to have the best, because the tax corporate rates are very low. They are helping a lot people to invest there. So I think it's the easy way to do it. For a Macau company, if the Macau company has customers in Macau only, I wouldn't tell them to go now, because you don't have many people there to serve. What can I say more about Hangqing? It's happening. It's going to take time. I think BNU one day is going to be much bigger in Hangqing than in Macau, but it's a little bit the chicken and egg. So you have a lot of investments there, but not people. But people is going to appear. We have the 4,000 apartments that the Macau urban renewal already almost finished. They are going to be put on sale. And I think the prices are very competitive. The quality is good. So I think maybe we are going to have in the near future 4,000 people and 4,000 families from Macau living there. But I'm seeing my friend Osolinski here. Maybe he can talk about it also.
That is actually what I was thinking about. Perhaps Matthew Osolinski, a Hangqing-based consultant. He's been there for over a decade, and he's really knowledgeable about the situation. Matthew, In addition to questions that you may want to throw in, please share with us your 2 cents on Hanshin and all these expectations, doubts, and opportunities.
Thank you, Jose Carlos, and thank you, Carlos. I won't take the time away from this esteemed panel to give a speech about Hanshin that many of you have heard already, but if there are specific questions at some point, I'd be happy to. We have some programs coming up in the fall where I'll be giving presentations and visits to Hanshin, so we can maybe drill down a little bit more on that side. I would throw it open, and by the way, you mentioned several years that I've been in Hanshin. This is the first such panel which is about the Macau economy that I'm hearing so much talk about Hanshin and Macau and Hanshin being put together as a single place and single geography. Very happy to hear that. I've been trying to say it for several years, but now people can see and feel it happening, and people are starting to think in this way. So I think just the amount of time we've been discussing Hanshin tonight is a positive sign. People are paying attention. There are questions that remain unanswered, but people are paying attention in a way that should be. So I think these are positive early steps. I'm going to bring it back to Macau, and in one way or another, many of you on this panel are in the orbit of the numbers that you started by this session with Jose Carlos, which is GGR, gross gaming revenue, maybe EBITDA for some of us, and visitation numbers. If we take into account, looking forward, not over the next year, but the next 5 years or even more, if we take into account Hanshin, the opening of new transportation infrastructure there, which will bring people to Macau, and the addition of tens of thousands of hotel rooms to Macau's room inventory, plus an expectation of easing of visas for those visitors to come to Macau more easily, would anybody care to offer a prediction for what in these next few years GGR can reach and visitation numbers can reach for Macau? Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. That's a great question. Now, looking at the crystal ball, Charles, you are looking at your crystal ball, imaginary, and you can foresee something? Yes.
I think, Matthew, I mean, I think it's a good question, definitely, but I would say it's a tough question. I would see Hanshin, Macau as one integrated body. Perhaps you would say 10 years ago, but I'll say from now. Because I'm also serving at the National Committee of the CPPCC. So I attended the 2 sessions, and I've been hearing a lot about Hanshin, and we are also in different industries contributing to ideas and also executions and the roadmap, how to achieve that. But the questions that you have just asked, I would say is still yet to be clearly answered. However, I would agree with most of our speakers here that Hanshin it's a necessary part of Macau, and we cannot see Macau as now Macau, and we have to see Macau and Hanshin as our future, for not only perhaps our next generation and onward. It's a long-term thing. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's long-term. Well, I hope it's mid-term. And another thing that, back to you, which I've also heard at the 2 sessions, which I found it very interesting, was that, Macau, we have some strong points, such as integrated results. I think no region in the world could have a say on operating integrated results than Macau. And we have a pool of talents here. And if we want to, we could have more of these talents to Macau. And that has an implication to Hanshin. Hanshin is the backyard. I mean, it's not a very good word, but it was assigned by the central government to Macau as such. And I think that would put a lot in the 1+4, that one that we've been talking about. It's about education. It's about standardizations of services, hospitality. And that means we don't have, back to Jill, we don't have to advertise our brand because our brand is is there. I mean, it's convincing to tell people that Macau is, we are very, very good at that. And of course, we might create competitors, but this is a competitive world. So I think that's my view on that.
Thank you, Charles. Billy.
I love to see Hongqing to be part of Macau. They call it intensive cooperation. I don't know how they're gonna window dress this with beautiful English. If we pay the Macau tax, if we have free internet, if people got blue card, don't have to worry about queuing up 45 minutes to get there. Getting through the desk, the immigration desk. If the government actually easing a few things, that could be a very interesting a picture in maybe not next year, probably 2026, or and the new hospital in nearby Kulawan, you need a reservoir. It will be a Beijing operation anyway. So if the health bureau, for instance, let's take our eyeballs elsewhere. Look at Las Vegas, $5 to $6 billion of turnover every year. Gaming. Look at the medical conferences, business conferences, $24 billion a year just doing conference. We can easily do that if you take those steps to ease a lot of those immigration issues, blue card issues, and all that. And make it more user-friendly for foreigners, not Chinese tourists. Talk about people from overseas, from Europe. They came to Macau, they felt very lost, not signposted. Things are not that they're used to, like coming to a strange place in Asia. They felt lost. If we, tweak those stuff, and I'm sure Hongqing would be a fantastic place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe I'm too optimistic, but if an Australian government trade commission brought 20 companies over, they are optimistic. So I don't feel how you call it, too pessimistic about it. But cautiously, you've got to work on those hurdles. Yeah, that's my 2 points.
Thank you, Keith. Something that Matthew was pointing at was the possibility of Hongqing playing a key role in adding to the hotel room inventory of Macau to significantly increase the hotel room capacity of Macau Hongqing as a unified economic area. Maybe you want to comment on that, on that side, and also on how to pass this kind of perception or reality or perception of Hongqing as still being, to some extent, a sort of white elephant.
I think looking forward, we have to assume that Macau and Hengqin are integrated in the future, because I can see a danger that Hengqin itself grows bigger than Macau if you call them separate places. And so you have lots of hotel rooms in Hengqin. They've got this big ocean park, that Chimelong getting bigger. There's something opening in Zhuhai as well. If you don't control Hengqin, maybe it'll get bigger than Macau, and Macau will only be the gaming hub. And so for me, they have to combine these two as being one area, complementary. I was telling Jose before we started, one of my ex-staff who lives in Hong Kong, I said to her, when you coming to Macau with your family? She said, oh, you know what? It's cheaper to go to Thailand than to go to Macau at the weekend, And then recently I've heard, because they've got the driving scheme, Go North, that people are going north, and the F&B trade, the local in Macau, is starting to suffer, and shops as well. So there's so many dynamics to actually answer your question. I can't answer it, but there are lots of things we have to look out for, and which affect things. The world is not static, and there'll always be something that causes an upset down the road. But I think Macau and Hengqin have to be one before you can really talk about the whole thing, because people forget that Macau, okay, it has a lot of tourists, but its population, 680,000 of which, I don't know, 300,000 is it 300,000 imported or something?
170,000.
But then you've got children as well. The actual working population of Macau is about 300,000. So it is a small place, you know, and all these things that are being talked about, be the tourism, the 1+4 and the medical tourism, MICE and everything. It's a lot for a village, you know, and Hengqin will grow and take over. So I think that's what we've got to watch out for. Even in this 1+4, okay, Rutger said forget about the MICE, but I know the 1+4 is MICE plus culture plus arts, okay? But I know in Sands Macau there's a theatre, empty. In the Londoner there's a theatre, empty. There's one in Parisian, empty. Venetian, empty. You know, so the facilities are there, but how do you fill all those up? Because the number of acts you have to bring into Macau to fill all that up is big. Now, obviously, when you start coming out of COVID, you know, before COVID, there were lots of concerts in the cultural centre, international orchestras. We haven't got there yet. We're still, because everybody's booked up. So maybe next year we'll start seeing things, but there's a long way to go.
Thank you, Keith. Rutger, how to ensure that we're gonna have a win-win situation instead of a zero-sum game in all this process?
We need certain people to work with speed of light.
Okay.
That's very short, I think. And we should maybe not think too much about the brand of Macau. Macau in the future will be a district of Greater China, of course. We cannot imagine Macau without Hengqin. There's no place for the four diversifications without Hengqin, obviously. And I think it's just not said, but it will be very soon. And I think, no mistake, at the end of the year, this year, there's a milestone that has to be achieved by a certain plan from Beijing that includes access to Hengqin. So we talk about free movement of labor, money, and goods. And that is happening. It shall happen. It's just a matter of when, and it's probably maybe a year, maybe less than a year away. So we should maybe not, Jill had a question about branding. We should be concerned about brand of Macau. Yeah, that's the neighborhood Macau. I think we have a brand which is called GBA. And that they don't know Hengqin is a problem too. We are building a hotel in Hengqin and no one knows Hengqin. So some people start to call it, not mention my hotel name, ... Hengqin, of Zhuhai. I said, wait a minute, it's not Zhuhai, you know, we are in Hengqin. Because we may have another hotel in Zhuhai later, right? So, so it is all complicated. That we are Greater Bay Area, and I think some people said it before. Greater Bay Area is that should be on our thinking cap here. Greater Bay Area, and Macau is one part of it. We will have the entertainment part of it, with the integrated resorts and a lot of MICE. Hengqin will have many more rooms. It's going to be very competitive because labor in mainland China is cheaper than in Macau, as we know. And there's a lot more labor force that can easily work in Hengqin than in Macau. So that's going to be interesting. If you asked before, what's the MICE, what's the hotel business looking like in the future? And that's probably maybe 5 to 10 years away. But it's going to be seriously competitive between Macau, you know, the Monaco, the old rich is here, and the new rich in Hengqin. And I don't know what the hotel rates are going to be in Hengqin and in Macau. If people can travel freely, you know, the kids go play in the water park in Hengqin or in the Ocean Kingdom, and then someone else is going to, you know, play roulette or baccarat. That's a great value proposition. I think. So there's a lot of variety coming up in the Greater Bay Area, and I'm glad that we are part of it.
Thank you, Rutger. Rui, you have been taking notes of all these conversations, mental notes, but also typing on your computer. I know that. Or maybe I would like you to join the conversation. This is a critical juncture that we are in, and how to ensure that it's a win-win situation and to stray away from any sort of zero-sum game reality or mindset.
I would like to pick up on on the comment that Jill made regarding branding. I think that's very important. I had a couple of weeks ago, I was in Brussels for 3 days. I had meetings with several heads of cabinet of the commissioners, and not one of them knew what Hengqin was. And I think that's something that we need to take into account. We know what Hengqin is because we go to our window and we look out past the lakes and we see Hengqin and the way it's been developing there. But outside of our small bubble, no one knows what Hengqin is. I gave out a lot of cards and business cards and told them, you should come and see what Hengqin is, because this is the possibility of great cooperation between China and Europe, so that the hatchet can be buried and focused on cooperation. And I think that we do need to do some work in branding Hengqin and the Greater Bay Area, like Rutger was saying. I think that the reason this hasn't been done yet might be because we have some other shortcomings. Namely, what we already talked about regarding letting people come in and settle here. Because if we start publicizing that Hengqin is going to be great and people start trying to come in and then they're not allowed to, it's not going to be great. I think we really need to solve the importation of labor issue and then start actively branding Hengqin and Macau, because the future of Macau is indissociable from Hengqin, and we need to quickly go through these two hurdles so that we can focus on what's coming next.
Thank you. Carlos, would you like to add something?
I have good news.
Oh, okay, great news.
Imagine that we had to do all this without money.
Yes.
Macau is still AA rating,
Yes.
one of the top in the world. Macau has a fund of more than 50 billion euros. So money, for sure, is enough. Then, as Jill mentioned, as everybody mentioned, we need talent, we need branding, but there's central government wants to go on this path. Local government is doing what they do and what they can to do it. So getting together all the stakeholders, public, private, I think we can do it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very important note on money, on capital. When we have also plenty of ideas and suggestions here in this roundtable. Before we go for the final round, would anyone from the audience like to join in and just share something very briefly, or throw a question? Please, Mary Mendoza.
Steering back the discussion on Tourism Plus.
Yes.
So in midterm, it's really important to incorporate Hengqin. Well, in fact, international tourist arrival, and in the long term is Hengqin. However, we are still recovering from the past pandemic just 6 months ago. And so currently our tourist visitation is 60% of the pre-pandemic levels, which is in fact a very a good recovery as what we can see. However, there's also some catch-24 in that particular numbers, because we know that there's a lot of restrictions in terms of income level that could come into Macau. So there's a lot of like visa restrictions in certain level of those guests with a real propensity to spend that could in fact help in a short term in terms of increasing our revenues for Macau government, and which in turn is to the local community. Now, my question is that what do you think would be the way in terms of to allow more funds to come into Macau, because there are certain restrictions? That's number one. And my second question is that in terms of hospitality and tourism, it's really important that we have the numbers of tourist visitation. However, how do we know that, or how do we attract the right caliber instead of only those that would go in a short term? Day trip is important, of course. However, I think with a higher spending power would be a little bit more conducive to what we want to achieve in the short term. So that's my main question is really capital flight to come in. And second is really more how to attract actually the tourists with the good income level from China to come in, because they are the shortest, they're the easiest way to get something back from Macau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. The issue of discretionary spending ability and power of visitors and how that could impact. Would anyone like to address this from the panel? Charles or Billy, or please? Yeah. Tourism industry, yes, correct. Rutger, perhaps, yes. Yes.
Well, I think on the tourism industry, how to get quality tourists in is to give a good reason why to come here. And then we go back a little bit to the branding that people say, what is Macau? We need to have, they should ask the question, I want to go to Macau, not ask the question, what is Macau? So at the moment, I think the government is doing a great job. MGTO is traveling left and right and bringing hotel people along to promote Macau as it is with the Tourism Plus. And I think the Tourism Plus is really going to bring in the quality of visitors that we look for a longer stay, because there is more than just, the reason is just not shopping or just a game. The reason is you come for a sports tournament, or you come for educational tour, study tours, you come for maritime activities. So that's all, at least in my events, congresses, that is all 2 days, 3 days, or 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights. And that automatically will filters out those who don't spend in our economy. So I think that's one way.
Thank you. And now let's go for a final round. In a nutshell, main takeaways and anything that might shed light onto the future development of inspiration. Charles.
All right. So because again, I'm in manufacturing, and also we run a brand, and I would say for Macau, which I've been telling the government, local government here, and also the Beijing government, that nurturing brands in Macau is a very important task. And it's not for short-term gain, but it's for longer-term gain. And because obviously brands can facilitate our tourism, which is the one, tourism, leisure. And also it will, at the same time, while we're promoting Macau, we're promoting our cultures through these brands also. So I would say I'm all for it. For brands, I think it would be a very good facilitating part of our 1+4, which is the one part. Here's what I'm sharing.
Thank you. Billy, your last thoughts, concluding remarks?
Fantastic session, thought-provoking, and thoroughly enjoying this. Macau can be absolutely amazing. What we have, the hardware and all that, and bringing in talents and all that. Medical tourism, we can never compete with Thailand. You spend $5,000 US to fix your implant, but Thailand can do it one-fifth the price. We can never compete with that. Even India, we can't compete with them. We can only bring in very niche, very high-tech type of treatment that those places cannot offer. And then China, with a backbone, with so many new things coming in, like gene therapy, mRNA therapy, stem cell and all this stuff. It would take forever for the health bureau here to approve these procedures. But if the Chinese government can help and do it in Hangqing, I think there's a bright future, and make that sort of a health medical tourism designed for people to come in. Yeah, so use Hangqing as a resort, or the back of the island can make it like look like a Bahamas or whatever. So I think that we have enough talents and people with good ideas. Just I would like the local government to think a bit deeper and work a bit harder to make it happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Billy. Keith, concluding remarks,
Yes,
suggestions?
I would like to just explain something. So we're all in chambers of commerce here in Macau, but actually we are just little organizations. We are volunteer. Maybe we've got somebody who's the general manager, but we're volunteer organizations. And if I'm talking British Chamber, if I go to Hong Kong, that's where all the big boys are, the HSBC, the insurance companies, finance companies. In Macau, we have the shopping brands, we have the Burberrys and the Marks and Spencers, but all their head offices are in Hong Kong. So the big challenge is to get Hong Kong to start for us, for the British, Hong Kong and Guangdong to start selling henshin, because Macau in itself, a number of businesses in Macau that are British is very small on one hand probably, and that's another aspect we've got to look at. Is we've got to get Hong Kong and Guangdong getting interested in henshin. Actually, I've got a call on Friday morning with Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce to try and get them to start pushing people our way, and also from the Consulate Department of International Trade. So it's again to do with what is henshin and how do I get there, and that people can't travel into Macau direct. They've always got to take a stopover. Someone was telling me recently about MICE. Why can't we have buses at the airport that take the Hong Kong airport, taking all the people for MICE straight into our resort? Well, it's not allowed. But those are the changes that have to happen to put Macau and henshin on the map.
Thank you, Keith. Rutger.
Yeah. Well, once again, the speed of light, and I think I read that the CE during the policy, the Macau's policy announcement, he said that he is pushing the government, the public administration to be more efficient, improve their governance, work fast on legislation, and also efficient management of the government bodies. And that's not my words; these are the words of the CE. So, if that is really, and that will happen. We talk about how efficient Hong Kong is, how efficient even mainland is, and that we seems to move like a turtle. I think it's time of change. It has been announced. So, and I trust that this is actually happening. Next year we will be halfway the handover. That's another milestone that we will encounter. Meaning, we should have positive expectations. Constructive criticism is helping. I hope what we voice out today is taken in a positive light, because that's the way we mean it. So yeah, I believe that in the next 3 to 5 years we will see major changes for the better.
Thank you, Rutger. Rui, what would you like to share with us as for concluding remarks, suggestions, the way forward?
I would like to pick up on what Keith said. We are all voluntary organizations, most of us quite small, and we are trying to do our best for what we believe is the best for Macau. We are all Macau people. We all live in Macau. We all are all betting on the future of Macau. Regarding the government, I think the government has been going on the right direction. Needs to speed up a little bit. most of all, needs to start taking risk, which is something that's not usual in Macau. But if we are going to be successful, we need to take risks. It's okay to fail once in a while. And this is something that I think the government needs to hear. We cannot be ruthless and always criticizing the government. We need to allow them to do things and make mistakes and then grow from those mistakes. It's normal to do mistakes, so let's try to do more mistakes, because that would be a good sign that things are going not only in the right direction, but also with the speed that they need to go right now.
Thank you, Rui. Carlos, your final take.
José, so going back to the chamber, to the Portuguese-Chinese chamber, I would say that we are trying strongly to get important company from Portugal, or from the Portuguese-speaking countries, to come to Hengqin, because if we have a successful case, then it's going to be much easier. Mm-hmm. We need to have one case to show to the world that it's possible, that it's happening, that it's not easy, but it's happening. And I think with that, I think we are going to have not one, but 5, 10, and more companies coming here to Hengqin.
Thank you very, very much. And with this, we conclude our session. Big thanks. It was particularly meaningful. It was really enlightening and very, very pleasant exchange. Thank you very much, all distinguished guest speakers, Carlos Cid Álvares, Rui Pedro Cunha, Rutger, Verschuren, Keith Buckley, Billy Chan, and Charles Choy, and to all of you who joined us here at Rui Cunha Foundation, live on Facebook and on MBtv, and of course to the Rui Cunha Foundation team for this cooperation. We will be back after the summer break with more talks, more news, and more views. Thank you very, very much. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.